Hello, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back. We're going to be reading the definitions for the archetypes in the appendix. We read A through C, and now we're going to read D, E, and F. And I'm sorry, I have to talk a little bit lower because my son is struggling to fall asleep tonight, and I don't know if he's all the way asleep, but it's getting late, and I wanted to make this next video for you. So hopefully the lower tone isn't bothersome to you. I'm pretty loud as it is, so I'm pretty sure this is most people's speaking voice. Okay, let me just move some stuff over a little bit here. All right, so now we move on to the letter D, damsel, which is also princess. The damsel in distress may be the oldest female archetype in all of popular literature and the movies. She is always beautiful and vulnerable and in need of rescue, specifically by a knight, and once rescued is taken care of in lavish style. When disappointed, a damsel must go through a process of empowerment and learn to take care of herself in the world. The shadow side of this archetype mistakenly teaches old patriarchal views that women are weak and teaches them to be helpless and in need of protection. It leads a woman to expect to have someone else who will fight her battles for her, while she remains devoted and physically attractive, and concealed in the castle. Many women still expect to marry a man who will give them a castle and take care of them. And some men are raised to expect to do this. And then it says, see prince and knight, which we'll get to. The damsel's fear of going it alone holds the damsel/knight relationship together. It also often shatters the relationship when the prince or knight grows older and expects to have a perennially young, attractive princess at his beck and call. The princess inevitably grows older, even if she remains helpless, or she becomes more interested in the outside world, develops skills and competencies, and is unable to maintain the same old dynamic of dependency. Either way, most damsel/prince relationships ultimately find that they change or fail. The damsel/princess must ultimately learn to fight her own battles and evolve into a queen. The princess is more often associated with romance rather than distress. She awaits a knight who is worthy of her beauty and rank and will take her not to his castle, but to a palace. The castles that damsels are taken to have prisons, cold stone walls, drawbridges, and moats. Palaces are fantastically beautiful and charmed, and are associated with ballrooms and elegance. The common archetypal expression, daddy's little princess, implies an adoring father who brings up his daughter surrounded by beauty and abundance. There is no daddy's little damsel in distress. The princess and the damsel, however, both are taught to be helpless and do share a yearning for a knight as a partner in life. The implication being that without a knight, they are powerless in the world. The challenge inherent in these archetypal patterns, therefore, is to do for yourself what you expect the knight to do for you. Provide for and protect yourself. The princess archetype is also influenced by our colloquial use of the term, and especially its heavy freight of anti-feminist connotations of a woman who is overly demanding, as in Jewish American Princess, or in the story of The Princess and the Pea. Even when used positively, the word can imply an unreal, bland, or cosseted character, like the teenage daughter nicknamed Princess on the TV series Father Knows Best. But a genuine princess looks out not for her own comfort and whimsy, but for the welfare of those around her. In Asia, tales abound of clever and resourceful princesses, and of conflicts between schools of martial arts. For instance, a prince and a princess battle it out in the Ang Lee film Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And Scheherazade bravely married the Sultan, who had decided to kill all his new wives at daybreak, and beguiled him with tales for 1,001 nights, until he rescinded his decree, thus saving all the women. In reviewing your relationship to this archetype, return to your fantasies as a young girl and note what your expectations were in looking for a mate. Most significantly, you were or are you consciously or unconsciously awaiting the arrival of your knight in shining armor? That was supposed to be a question. Are you consciously or subconsciously waiting or unconsciously waiting for your knight in shining armor? Did you think or behave like a damsel? Were you hoping to be rescued? And if you are now coping with the consequences of a broken relationship, can you trace the reasons for the failed partnership back to being disappointed that your expectations as a damsel were not met? Now, some films that are relatable to this archetype. Pearl White in The Perils of Pauline, which is The Perils of Pauline. Then there's some silent films here. Fay Ray in King Kong, Betty Hutton in The Perils of Pauline, Gene Simmons in Young Bess, Robin Wright in The Princess Bride, Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia in the Star Wars trilogy, Ingrid Bergman in Anastasia, Gwyneth Paltrow in Shakespeare in Love, Kate Winslet in Titanic, and Jeff Daniels in Something Wild. Now for fiction, we have Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, Emma by Jane Austen. Fairy tales, we have Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel, Cinderella. And in religion and myth, we have Ko no Hana. In Shinto belief, the Japanese blossom princess, who symbolizes the delicate aspects of earthly life. Io, in Greek myth, the princess daughter of a river god who suffered continuously as the object of Zeus's lust. Princess Aiga Arm, strong, valiant daughter of Mongolian king Kaidu, who offered herself in marriage to any suitor who could wrestle her down, but who, if he lost, had to give her a horse. She never married and won 10,000 horses. Now we have the Destroyer, or Attila, mad scientist, serial killer, spoiler. Destruction and reconstruction is another way of describing the death and rebirth cycle of life. Systems and structures must be dismantled so that new life can be born. Myths and legends about gods and goddesses bringing destruction to the earth are common to all traditions. Yahweh destroyed the world through the Great Flood and rained fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah. In the Hindu tradition, the goddess Kali, generally pictured wearing a belt made of dismembered arms and a necklace of human skulls, represents the positive power of destruction, annihilating ignorance and maintaining the world order. The god Shiva, Kali's male counterpart, destroys in order to create. The impulse to destroy and rebuild is archetypal. We are bound to that cycle, and therein lies the learning. Destruction also refers to releasing that which is destroying us, and so many therapists and other healers serve the role of the destroyer by assisting others to release destructive emotions or behavior. The power of positive destruction is enormously healing and liberating. In its shadow manifestation, destruction becomes an end in itself, and one becomes intoxicated with one's own destructive power and addicted to it. The destroyer generates death, madness, and abuse and targets individuals and groups. It can manifest as a nation that destroys other nations or people who destroy the environment. To count this shadow archetype as part of your support group, you must be able to recognize a pattern within your psyche that destroys relationships or promotes attitudes and opinions that destroy others' dreams or potential. Films that are relatable to this archetype: Jack Palance in The Signs of the Pagan, William Holden in The Wild Bunch, Anthony Hopkins in The Silence of the Lambs, Ralph Fiennes in Schindler's List, and Richard Basehart and Hitler. Now we've got religion and myth that's relatable to this. Angra Mainyu, or Ahriman, in Zoroastrianism, the eternal destroyer of good, personification of evil, and conveyor of death and disease. Kalki, in Hindu belief, the final incarnation of Vishnu, who will descend from the sky on a white horse to destroy the wicked, renew the world, and restore righteousness. The Furies or Eriness, avenging deities of Greek myth who pursued and persecuted anyone who killed a parent, brother, or fellow clansman by driving the murderer mad. The four horsemen of the apocalypse, allegorical figures in the New Testament, book of Revelation or Apocalypse, who symbolize war, pestilence, famine, and death. Okay, now we have detective or spy, double agent, sleuth, Snoop, Sherlock Holmes, private investigator, profiler, and then it says see also warrior/crime fighter. Positive characteristics of the detective include the ability to seek out knowledge and information that supports solving crimes and protecting the public. Detectives combine great powers of observation with highly evolved intuition to deduce the solution to the crimes. Whereas the detective is public and often highly respected, especially its modern counterpart, the police profiler, the empowered spy is associated far more with the surreptitious and often illegal acquisition of secret information regarding politics, business, or national security. Our attitude towards spies often depends on whose side they're on. Many Americans see Gary Powers as a heroic figure, while double agents such as Robert P. Hansen or British intelligence officer and Soviet spy Kim Philby are considered traitors. The shadow side of these archetypes can manifest as voyeurism, falsifying information, or selling out to the highest bidder. Parents who spy on their children with good intentions, such as uncovering their involvement with sex or drugs, are nonetheless flirting with the shadow detective. And some films here. Humphrey Bogart in The Maltese Falcon and The Big Sleep, Richard Burton in The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, Kelly McGillis and Jeff Daniels in The House on Carroll Street, Kathleen Turner in V.I. Warshawski, Laurence Olivier in Sleuth, any James Bond, Sherlock Holmes, or Charlie Chan film. Fiction, we have Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Dashiell Hammett, Agatha Christie, Rex Stout, Tom Clancy, and John le Carre. Those are the authors. Television, we have I Spy and Magnum P.I. And in religion and myth, we have Sinon. In Greek lore, a spy who gained the trust of the Trojans by pretending to have deserted the Greeks, then convinced them to take in the wooden horse, leading to their downfall. Next, we have dilettante, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, dilettante, or amateur. From a Latin root meaning to delight in. The dilettante is a lover of the fine arts who never rises above an amateur, and to whom the phrase jack of all trades, master of none applies. Although the word has the negative connotation of a dabbler who seeks only a cursory knowledge or experience, it never completely loses the sense of delighting in the arts. The amateur, from the Latin root for love, has many of the same qualities of the dilettante, is applied to the realm of sports or applied arts such as cooking and gardening. In many cases, it's better to be an inspired amateur than a grinded-out professional. Like the survival archetypes, the dilettante or amateur can alert you when you are in danger of becoming merely superficial in your pursuits or losing the love that drew you to your avocation in the first place. The shadow dilettante manifests as a pretension to much deeper knowledge than you actually possess. So what we might call a know-it-all. Films. Catherine Frott in La Dilettante, Carol Channing in Thoroughly Modern Millie, Liza Minnelli in Cabaret, Spring Byington in You Can't Take It With You, Hermione Gingold in The Music Man, John Savage in The Amateur, Henry Fonda in The Lady Eve, and then fiction, we have Dodsworth by Sinclair Lewis and The Dilettante, I think that's how you say it, by Edith Wharton. Now we have the Don Juan or Casanova, Gigolo, Seducer, Sex Addict. Sexual energy provides great power when properly channeled. Like the Femme Fatale, which we'll get to, the Don Juan archetype can make us aware of falling into sex role cliches. misusing the power of romantic attraction and pursuit. Although associated with sensuality and sophistication, this archetype represents a man preying on women for the sake of conquest alone. Sex addiction is not about sex, but about the need to gain control of someone. Don Juan radiates an attitude that all women need him far more than he needs them, and that he is invulnerable to their charms. The positive aspect of this archetype is its underlying vulnerability and its power to open wide a heart that is capable of deep love. As many stories portray, once the gigolo meets his match, he has also found his mate. His match, however, in keeping with the profile of this pattern, must have emotional independence and the self-esteem to be immune to his manipulative skills. And films. We have Warren Beatty in Shampoo, Richard Gere in American Gigolo, Donald Sutherland in Casanova, Michael Caine in Alfie, Johnny Depp in Don Juan DeMarco, and Jude Law in AI. Fiction, we have Quiet Days in Clichy by Henry Miller, and in Religion and Myth, we have Satire. In Greek myth, a creature with a goat's tail, flanks, hooves, and horns, but otherwise human upper body, who drinks, dances, and chases nymphs. The Roman version is the faun, and in Slavonic culture, the Lekshi. Priapus, Greek and Roman deity of gardens attributed with enormous genitals. Akamana, in Zoroastrianism, the personification of sensual desire. Let's see, D, E, F. Okay, so now we're on F, or E, sorry. Engineer, or the architect, builder, schemer. The engineer is eminently practical and hands-on and devoted to making things work. The characteristics of the engineer reflect the grounded, orderly, strategic qualities of mind that convert creative energy into a practical expression. This archetype also manifests as a talent for engineering everyday situations or designing solutions to common dilemmas. The shadow engineer manifests as a master manipulator, designing and engineering situations to one's own advantage regardless of the needs or desires of others. Films, Alec Guinness in The Bridge on the River Kwai, Gary Cooper in The Fountainhead, and Jeff Bridges in Tucker. Drama, The Master Builder by Henrik Ibsen, and Religion or Myth. Ellen, in Welsh myth, the world's first highway engineer, who protected her land by magically creating highways so that her soldiers could defend it. Amenhotep, ancient Egyptian architect who later was venerated as the god of building. Daedalus, renowned Cretan architect who constructed the labyrinth of the Minotaur and fashioned artificial wings for himself and his son Icarus. Now we have the Exorcist or Shaman. The ability to confront evil in the form of possession by destructive or antisocial impulses in oneself and others is as valuable today as it was in the time of Jesus, the master exorcist. Just as modern biblical scholars suggest that the demon that Jesus cast out may have been forms of psychological illness, so we can see our own inner demons as arising from forces that we feel are beyond our control. Shamans, for example, conduct rituals for the release of negative spirits from a person's soul. To include this among your family of archetypes, however, you would have to find a lifelong pattern of exorcising the negative spirits of others or of social groups or society. The shadow exorcist attacks the evil in others without having the courage to face his own demons. So some films. Jason Miller in The Exorcist. I'm not sure, I think that might be the priest, the young priest, if you've seen that movie. Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense. And then we have Religion and Myth. We have Shoki, Shinto god of the afterlife and exorcism, and Zong-Kui, Taoist god of the afterlife and exorcism. Next we have Father or Patriarch, Progenitor, Parent. This archetype combines a talent for creating or initiating with the ability to oversee others, whether a biological family or a group of creative people. Although the father has taken on negative connotations associated historically with paternalism and male dominance, we shouldn't lose sight of its primary characteristics of courage. Think of Abraham leaving the home of his ancestors to father a new race in a strange land, and protectiveness. A true father guides and shields those under his care, sacrificing his own desires when that's appropriate. The shadow father emerges when that caring guidance and protection turns into dictatorial control or abuse of authority. Being a biological father and family man clearly isn't enough to include this archetype in your intimate circle. You will need to uncover a lifelong attachment to the role of family patriarch, however you conceive of that family. Films: William Powell in Life with Father, Spencer Tracy in Father of the Bride, Dustin Hoffman in Kramer versus Kramer. And keep in mind, if you're familiar with the newer Father of the Bride, with, I can't remember his name, Steve Martin, that's a remake. So there is an original, black and white, I believe, if you're only familiar with the newer one. Okay, Dustin Hoffman in Kramer versus Kramer, Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird, Lamberto Maggiorani in The Bicycle Thief, and Raymond Massey in East of Eden. Television, we have Robert Young in Father Knows Best, Fred McMurray in My Three Sons. Fiction, we have All the Way Home by James Agee. And in religion and myth, most ancient cultures had at least one father god, usually associated with the sky, who also functioned as creator and patriarch, including Uranus and Zeus, Greece, Jupiter for Rome, Indra and Brahma for India, the Jade Emperor for China, Izanagi for Japan, Ra and Ta for Egypt, and Oleron and Obatala for Africa or Yoruba. Now we have the Femme Fatale: Black Widow, Flirt, Siren, Seductress, Enchantress. The female counterpart of Don Juan sometimes adds the twist of killing her conquests as an expression of her ability to dominate, thereby reversing the conventional sexual stereotypes. As with Don Juan, the femme fatale represents highly refined skills at manipulating men without investing personal emotion. The femme fatale is both a sexual and a financial archetype, and either comes from or is drawn to money and power. Seducing men with money and power, and for the sake of personal control and survival, is a classic part of this archetype. Although the femme fatale is not looking for a home in the suburbs and the pleasures of family life. As with Don Juan archetype, the positive aspect of this pattern is the opening of the heart, which often occurs when the male object rejects the manipulations and dependencies of the femme fatale, as Rhett Butler rejects Scarlett O'Hara at the end of Gone with the Wind. Now some films: Barbara Stanwyck in Double Indemnity, Linda Fiorentino in The Last Seduction, Teresa Russell in Black Widow, Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Kathleen Turner in Body Heat, and Elizabeth Taylor in Cleopatra. Fiction, we have The Postman Always Rings Twice by James M. Cain. And for religion and myth, well, that's funny. My son and I were just working on a project for this, and I'm saying it wrong. It's spelled C-I-R-C-E, and I'm saying Circe, and he said it the right way, and now I've forgotten. But it's a Greek myth, a sorceress seductress who could turn men into animals with her magic wand. Potiphar's wife in the Hebrew Bible, when her attempt to seduce Joseph failed, she had him thrown into captivity. Her name is Zelika in Islamic tradition. Taipiru, a Polynesian nymphs who inhabit the waters that lead to the underworld, the goddess of death employs them to seduce men away from the earth. Then we have Lorelei, in Teutonic myth, a beautiful maiden who drowned herself after being spurned by her lover, and was then transformed into a siren, whose hypnotic music lured sailors to their death. Let me take a look at G. I just want to get these done for you guys. Yeah, I think we'll have to stop there. But the good news with that is we go from G to W. Or no, wait. Oh, I'm totally tripping here. We don't go from G to W. I skipped a few pages. All right, so we're gonna stop right there, and then the next video we'll do G, H, and I. And I don't even think there's anything under I. So G, H, J, K, L, whatever comes next. I'm not sure if there's any that start with I. I think there is though. So we'll stop right there, and I'll be posting my next video with the next 3 in the alphabet. I hope these help you. They're really nice. They're really interesting to read. I'm also doing this for myself because there's no way I would just do this for me. I'm mostly doing it for you, but I do benefit. So I'm going to hop back on here in another minute and make the next one. I'll see you guys soon. I love you. Bye-bye.